In a world filled with distractions, challenges, and constant change, true leadership requires more than just authority or influence. It demands purpose. To lead with fierce purpose means to rise above fear, doubt, and limitations, and to step into a higher vision that inspires others. It's about aligning your actions with your values, staying true to your inner calling, and igniting a spark that motivates not just yourself, but everyone around you. Leadership with fierce purpose isn't about control. It's about empowerment. It's not about ego, it's about service. And when you lead with such clarity and intensity, you don't just move people, you move humanity forward. To discover your inner calling and align it with your actions is to embark on the most important journey of your life, a journey that begins not in the external world, but deep within the quiet chambers of your soul, where your true voice whispers to you even when the noise of the world tries to drown it out. Every person is born with a unique spark, a divine imprint that carries within it the essence of who they are meant to be and what they are meant to contribute to the world. Yet so many people move through life unaware of this spark, distracted by obligations, expectations, or fears, chasing paths that have been laid out for them by others rather than walking the path their heart longs for. The first step toward leading with fierce purpose is the willingness to pause, to listen, and to ask yourself not what the world wants from you, but what your soul is calling you to bring forth. It requires courage, because often your inner calling does not align with what is comfortable, what is safe, or what others approve of. It may ask you to break free from conventions, to leave behind familiar security, or to risk failure in pursuit of something greater. But when you lean into that inner voice and begin to honor it, you awaken a strength that no obstacle can silence. The process of discovering your inner calling is not something that happens all at once. It unfolds gradually, often through moments of clarity, through life experiences that shake you awake, through both triumphs and struggles that reveal pieces of who you truly are. Sometimes your calling is revealed in the passions that energize you, the activities that make you lose track of time, the causes that stir your heart so deeply you cannot ignore them. Other times it is revealed through the pain you have endured, for often the challenges we survive equip us to guide others through the same struggles. Pay attention to the threads that run through your life, the moments that light you up, the times when you feel most alive and authentic. Those are clues pointing you toward your calling. It may not be one grand vision all at once. It may be small steps, a quiet pull in a certain direction. But if you honor it consistently, it will lead you exactly where you are meant to go. Yet discovering your calling is only half the path. The other half is aligning it with your actions. Too many people have an inner knowing of what they are meant to do, but never bring it into the physical world. They dream, they hope, they imagine, but they remain paralyzed by fear, doubt, or the endless waiting for the perfect moment. Alignment means integration. It means taking the wisdom of your inner calling and embodying it in the way you speak, the way you make decisions, the way you spend your time, the way you show up in relationships, and the way you serve others. Alignment requires integrity, because if your actions are not consistent with your deepest truth, you will always feel a gap, a disconnection, an unease that no amount of external success can silence. When you align your life with your inner calling, every step you take carries a power that others can feel, because you are no longer divided inside yourself. You become whole, authentic, and magnetic. Think of great leaders, visionaries, and change makers throughout history. What made them remarkable was not that they had authority or resources handed to them, but that they lived in fierce alignment with their inner calling. Gandhi listened to the call of truth and nonviolence and aligned his entire existence with it. Martin Luther King Jr. listened to the call of justice and equality and poured every ounce of his energy into it. Mother Teresa listened to the call of compassion and devoted her actions to serving the poorest of the poor. Each of them faced immense obstacles, criticism, and setbacks, but their alignment gave them unshakable resolve. When your life is congruent with your calling, external challenges lose their power to derail you, because you are fueled by something greater than fear or convenience. It is important to recognize that alignment does not mean perfection. You will stumble, you will question yourself, and you will face moments of doubt. What matters is not flawless execution, but consistent devotion. Each day is an opportunity to realign, to bring your choices a little closer to the truth of your calling. Ask yourself, is the way I spend my time today honoring my purpose? Are my words uplifting the vision I hold? Are my habits nurturing the life I want to create? Alignment is built through small, consistent actions that compound over time into a life of deep meaning. It is in choosing courage over comfort, service over self-interest, growth over stagnation, authenticity over approval. To lead with fierce purpose, you must let your calling guide not only your personal life, but also the way you influence and inspire others. People are drawn to authenticity, and they can sense when someone is walking their talk. When your actions reflect your deepest truth, you become a living example, a beacon that shows others what is possible. Your leadership becomes less about commanding and more about inspiring. You ignite others not by forcing them to follow you, but by awakening within them the courage to listen to their own callings and align their lives as well. This ripple effect is what true leadership is about. It is not about creating followers, but about creating more leaders who live with authenticity and purpose. Sometimes people believe their calling has to be grand, world-changing, or extraordinary in order to matter. This is a misconception. Your calling may be to raise a family with love and integrity, to create art that stirs hearts, to teach and uplift the next generation, to heal others through your presence and care, to innovate within your field, or to stand as a voice of kindness in a world that can often be harsh. What matters is not the scale of your calling, but the sincerity with which you live it. When your actions are aligned, even the smallest gesture becomes powerful. A single act of kindness, done with purpose, can ripple through countless lives. A single word of encouragement, spoken from a place of alignment, can transform someone's path. Never underestimate the impact of living your truth, no matter how ordinary it may seem. Fear will always arise when you attempt to align your actions with your calling, because stepping into your true self often threatens the comfort of those around you and challenges the status quo. You may face resistance, misunderstanding, or even rejection. But fear is not a sign to stop, it is a sign you are on the edge of growth. When you lean into your calling despite fear, you build resilience. Every time you choose alignment over fear, you strengthen your inner resolve. Over time, this becomes a fierce energy, a fire that cannot be extinguished by circumstances. That is the power of leading with fierce purpose. It is not fragile or conditional, it is grounded in something eternal. There will also be times when you feel unclear about your calling, when doubt clouds your vision, and you wonder if you are on the right path. These moments are not failures, they are invitations to go deeper. Clarity often emerges in cycles. Trust that your calling will reveal itself more fully the more you live in alignment with what you do know. Take one step in the direction of authenticity, and the next step will appear. Stay open, stay patient, and keep listening. The more you practice alignment, the more your calling becomes undeniable, not because you figured it all out intellectually, but because you feel it in the resonance of your soul. It feels like peace, like energy, like aliveness. That is how you know you are on the right path. At its core, discovering your inner calling and aligning it with your actions is about honoring the sacred responsibility of your life. You were not placed here by accident. The gifts within you, the passions that stir your heart, the experiences you have lived through, all exist for a reason. Your life is a message, and the way you live it is the loudest speech you will ever give. By choosing alignment, you give that message power, clarity, and authenticity. And in doing so, you not only transform your own life, but also become a force of transformation in the lives of others. To lead with authenticity, not authority, is to recognize that the greatest influence you will ever have does not come from the power you hold over others, but from the truth you embody within yourself. Authority is rooted in titles, positions, or roles granted by external systems, but authenticity is rooted in the courage to be fully yourself, aligned with your values, transparent in your intentions, and unwavering in your integrity. People may comply with authority because they are obligated, but they are inspired by authenticity because they feel a genuine connection. Leadership that relies on authority often creates fear, distance, and dependency. But leadership that flows from authenticity creates trust, respect, and empowerment. When you choose to lead with authenticity, you are saying to the world that your worth is not defined by external labels or imposed hierarchies, but by the consistency of your character and the clarity of your heart. Authenticity is not something you perform. It is who you are when you strip away the masks, the pretenses, and the expectations that the world has layered upon you. Every person has a natural tendency to put on masks to fit in, to be accepted, to appear strong, or to meet the standards set by others. These masks can become so ingrained that we forget what lies beneath them. Leading with authenticity requires peeling back those layers and daring to reveal your true self. It means allowing your words and actions to come from the same place, so there is no gap between what you say and what you do, no hidden agenda behind your interactions, no performance to maintain. When people experience your authenticity, they feel safe because they know they are dealing with someone real, not someone pretending. That safety builds loyalty and trust, and it is trust that makes leadership sustainable. Authority alone is brittle. The moment the title is gone, the role changes, or the external power fades, authority evaporates. Authenticity, on the other hand, endures because it comes from the inside. You can lose your job, your title, or your position, but you cannot lose your authenticity unless you choose to abandon it. This is why authentic leaders often outlast their roles. People continue to follow and be influenced by them even after the formal authority has ended. Think about the mentors, teachers, or leaders who shaped your life most deeply. Chances are it was not their authority that moved you, but their authenticity. The way they cared, the way they listened, the way they spoke truth even when it was unpopular, the way they showed up as themselves without pretense. Authentic leaders leave imprints not because of their power, but because of their presence. To lead with authenticity requires self-awareness, the willingness to examine your own motives, values, strengths, and weaknesses honestly. It means knowing who you are beyond what you do. Many people confuse their identity with their achievements, titles, or possessions, but authenticity arises when you know yourself as you truly are, imperfect, evolving, and yet inherently valuable. Self-awareness allows you to recognize when you are acting out of fear or ego, and when you are acting from integrity. It helps you catch yourself when you are tempted to manipulate, exaggerate, or pretend, and instead choose transparency and honesty. Self-awareness is not always comfortable because it forces you to confront parts of yourself you might prefer to hide, but is essential for authentic leadership. The more you know yourself, the less you need to perform for others, and the more naturally your authenticity shines. Authenticity also demands vulnerability, the willingness to admit you do not have all the answers, to share your struggles as well as your successes, and to let others see your humanity. Many leaders mistakenly believe they must project strength at all times, hiding their doubts or mistakes in order to maintain authority. But real strength lies in vulnerability, because it creates connection. When you admit you are learning, when you share the lessons you've gained through failure, when you invite others into your process rather than presenting yourself as flawless, you build bridges of trust. People do not expect leaders to be perfect. They expect them to be real. Vulnerability shows that you value truth more than image, connection more than control, and growth more than ego. And in that vulnerability, others find the courage to embrace their own imperfections and rise with you. There is also a profound freedom in leading authentically. Authority can trap you in roles, rules, and rigid expectations, but authenticity liberates you to express yourself fully. You are no longer confined by the need to please everyone, to fit into predetermined molds, or to uphold appearances that drain your energy. Instead, you live and lead in alignment with your values, and that alignment makes you resilient. Critics may disagree with you, setbacks may come, but when you are authentic, you stand firm because you are not living for approval, but for truth. This freedom is magnetic, because people are drawn to those who live with integrity, who are the same in private as they are in public, who do not shift with the winds of opinion, but remain grounded in their values. One of the most powerful aspects of authentic leadership is that it empowers others to lead as well. When you lead through authority, you often create dependency. Others wait for your permission, your command, your direction. But when you lead through authenticity, you invite others into ownership. You show them that leadership is not about position, but about presence, not about control, but about contribution. You model what it means to live true to oneself, and in doing so, you encourage others to do the same. Authenticity is contagious. When people see you living openly and honestly, they feel emboldened to drop their own masks and step into their truth. This creates environments of trust, collaboration, and innovation because people no longer waste energy pretending to be who they are not. Instead, they bring their full selves to the table, and that unleashes creativity and commitment. Authenticity, however, is not always easy. It requires courage to stand firm when authority might be easier. It requires patience when the world pressures you to conform. It requires humility when ego tempts you to exaggerate. And it requires faith in the long game, because authenticity often takes longer to build recognition than authority does. You may not gain immediate compliance or instant power, but over time you will gain something far more valuable: deep trust, lasting respect, and genuine influence. Authority can be demanded, but authenticity must be earned, and once earned, it cannot easily be taken away. There will be moments when leading with authenticity feels risky, especially in environments that prize hierarchy and control. You may be misunderstood, challenged, or even dismissed, yet every time you choose authenticity over authority, you reinforce within yourself the kind of leader you aspire to be. You are training your heart to value truth over image, service over ego, integrity over convenience. And that inner alignment gives you a fierce strength that external authority can never provide. Authentic leaders can walk into a room without needing to assert power because their presence alone commands respect. Their words carry weight not because they speak loudly, but because they speak truthfully. Their impact endures not because they controlled people, but because they connected with them. When you lead with authenticity, your life itself becomes your message. You no longer need to convince people with arguments or force them with authority. Your example speaks louder than any command. People see the consistency in who you are, the congruence between your values and your actions, and that consistency builds credibility. In a world where so many voices clamor for attention, where so many leaders rise and fall because their authority was hollow, authenticity stands as a light. It may not always shine the brightest at first, but it shines steadily, and it guides people toward trust, meaning, and shared purpose. To cultivate resilience in yourself and your team is to build the inner and outer strength that allows you to withstand storms, recover from setbacks, and continue moving forward with determination no matter what obstacles arise. Resilience is not about avoiding hardship or pretending that challenges do not exist. It is about developing the capacity to meet them head-on and emerge stronger on the other side. Life will inevitably bring disappointments, losses, and struggles, and leadership will always involve moments of pressure, uncertainty, and conflict. What separates those who crumble under these moments from those who rise through them is resilience. It is the muscle of the mind and spirit that is strengthened each time you choose perseverance over surrender, hope over despair, and growth over stagnation. Without resilience, every challenge becomes a roadblock. With resilience, every challenge becomes a stepping stone to greater strength. Resilience begins within the self, because you cannot cultivate it in others unless you have first cultivated it in yourself. It starts with your mindset, the way you interpret and respond to difficulties. Two people can face the same challenge and come away with entirely different outcomes depending on the perspective they hold. One sees it as defeat, the end of the road, proof that they are not enough. The other sees it as feedback, as a lesson, as an opportunity to grow stronger. Resilience is born from the second mindset, the ability to see beyond the pain of the moment into the potential of the future. This does not mean denying the struggle or minimizing the difficulty. It means refusing to let it define you. It means choosing to ask, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? How can I use this to become better? That shift in perspective is the foundation of resilience. A resilient leader knows that failure is not final and that mistakes are not permanent marks but pathways to wisdom. Every great innovator, creator, and leader in history has stumbled, failed, or fallen at some point, yet their resilience allowed them to rise again. Thomas Edison, when asked about his thousands of failed attempts at inventing the light bulb, famously reframed those failures as lessons, each one bringing him closer to success. Resilience transforms failure into fuel, setbacks into stepping stones, losses into lessons. It keeps you moving forward when others stop. It keeps you believing when others give up. And it keeps you leading when others retreat. But resilience is not just about pushing through. It is also about how you care for yourself in the process. True resilience is not built on burnout, denial, or constant struggle. It is built on balance, on knowing when to push forward and when to rest, on understanding that endurance is not about never bending, but about being able to bend without breaking. Like bamboo in the wind, resilience means flexibility, the ability to adapt, to adjust, and to remain rooted even as circumstances change around you. It requires emotional awareness, the capacity to process stress, grief, or frustration in healthy ways rather than bottling them up until they explode. It requires physical care because a resilient body supports a resilient mind. It requires spiritual grounding, a sense of deeper purpose that gives meaning to the trials you endure. When you cultivate resilience holistically, you are not just surviving challenges, you are thriving through them. As a leader, cultivating resilience in your team is equally essential because the strength of a team is not measured by how well they perform when things are easy, but by how well they endure when things are difficult. A resilient team is one that can adapt to change, support one another through struggles, and maintain focus on the mission even when circumstances are uncertain. To build this kind of resilience, a leader must first model it. Your team learns resilience not from what you tell them, but from what they see in you. If they see you panic under pressure, they will panic too. If they see you blaming others when things go wrong, they will begin to point fingers as well. But if they see you remain calm in chaos, grounded in difficulty, and hopeful in hardship, they will absorb that same spirit. Leadership is contagious, and resilience is one of the most vital traits you can pass on to those around you. Creating a resilient team also means fostering a culture of trust, where people feel safe to make mistakes, safe to take risks, and safe to speak openly without fear of punishment. When a team knows they will not be torn down for failing, they are more willing to try new things, to innovate, and to stretch beyond their comfort zones. And when failure does happen, resilience allows the team to analyze it constructively rather than destructively, to extract lessons rather than assign blame, to move forward stronger rather than get stuck in regret. A resilient culture is one where setbacks are shared, where support is offered freely, and where everyone feels they are part of something larger than themselves. Resilience also requires adaptability. The world is constantly changing, and rigid systems or inflexible mindsets quickly become obsolete. A resilient team embraces change not as a threat, but as a chance to grow. They learn new skills, adopt new strategies, and find creative solutions when the old ways no longer work. As a leader, you cultivate this adaptability by encouraging curiosity, rewarding innovation, and framing challenges as opportunities for exploration. You remind your team that uncertainty is not the enemy, but the environment in which true leadership shines. Resilient teams are not the ones who avoid uncertainty, but the ones who learn to thrive within it. Another key to cultivating resilience is connection. Human beings are wired for community, and resilience is magnified when people feel supported. Isolation weakens resilience, while connection strengthens it. As a leader, you build resilience by fostering strong bonds within your team, by encouraging collaboration over competition, by creating moments of shared purpose and collective effort. When people know they are not facing challenges alone, when they feel they are part of a supportive network, their ability to endure hardship increases exponentially. Connection also creates accountability. Resilient teams hold each other up, remind each other of the bigger vision, and refuse to let one another quit when things get hard. Resilience is also deeply tied to purpose. When you and your team are anchored to a larger vision, setbacks lose their power to derail you. A clear sense of why you are doing what you do acts as a compass through the storms. It gives meaning to the struggles and transforms obstacles into part of the journey rather than the end of it. As a leader, constantly reminding your team of the mission, of the impact their work creates, and of the values that drive them will fuel their resilience. When the why is strong enough, the how becomes manageable, no matter how difficult it may be. It is important to recognize that resilience is not something you either have or do not have. It is something that can be cultivated, strengthened, and expanded over time. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to practice resilience, every obstacle a chance to grow stronger. The same is true for your team. Resilience is built in the daily choices, choosing to face the problem rather than avoid it, choosing to seek solutions rather than dwell on complaints, choosing to support one another rather than isolate, choosing to rise rather than retreat. Each of these small choices compounds, building a culture where resilience is the norm rather than the exception. To cultivate resilience in yourself and your team, you must embrace both grit and grace. Grit is the determination to keep going, to push forward, to never give up. Grace is the compassion to forgive yourself and others when things go wrong, the patience to allow growth to unfold in its own time, the humility to admit you need help, and the wisdom to rest when necessary. Together, grit and grace form the essence of resilience. Too much grit without grace leads to burnout. Too much grace without grit leads to complacency. Balance the two, and you create a strength that is both fierce and sustainable. Ultimately, resilience is about transformation. It is about taking what was meant to break you and using it to build you. It is about turning pain into power, setbacks into setups, obstacles into opportunities. It is about showing yourself and your team that no matter what comes, you have within you the capacity not only to endure, but to grow. When resilience becomes part of your character and your culture, challenges no longer intimidate you, they inspire you. You see them not as threats, but as tests, not as punishments, but as possibilities, not as barriers, but as bridges leading you to new levels of strength and purpose. To create a legacy that outlives your presence is to recognize that true leadership is not measured by the power you hold in the moment, but by the impact you leave behind long after you are gone. Every person, whether they realize it or not, is writing a story with their life, and the way they live, the way they lead, and the way they love becomes the legacy that others inherit. A legacy is not simply the wealth you accumulate or the titles you achieve. It is the imprint you leave on the hearts of people, the values you instill, the lessons you teach, and the inspiration you spark that continues to ripple through generations. When you live and lead with fierce purpose, your legacy becomes inevitable because you are no longer living only for yourself, but for something greater, something that carries forward beyond the limits of your lifetime. Legacy begins with intention. Many people drift through life without considering the story they are writing, without reflecting on how their actions today will echo in the future. But those who create enduring legacies live with clarity about the kind of mark they want to leave on the world. They ask themselves questions that go beyond the immediate. What values do I want to embody? What lessons do I want others to learn from my life? What example do I want to set? What kind of world do I want to help shape for those who come after me? When you lead with this level of intentionality, your daily choices take on new significance. You no longer measure success only by short-term results, but by the lasting influence those results will create. You begin to see every interaction, every word, every action as part of a bigger story that will continue long after you are gone. Creating a legacy is not about seeking fame or recognition. In fact, some of the most powerful legacies are left by people whose names are never widely known. A teacher who inspires her students to believe in themselves, a parent who raises children with kindness and courage, a mentor who opens doors for those who follow, a friend who shows unwavering loyalty. Each of these people leaves a legacy through the lives they touch. Leadership that focuses only on personal achievement may gain temporary applause, but leadership that focuses on lifting others creates an inheritance that continues to grow even when the leader is no longer present. True legacy is measured not in what you take, but in what you give, not in what you build for yourself, but in what you build for others. To create a legacy that outlives you, you must live in alignment with values that endure. Money, possessions, and status may fade, but integrity, compassion, courage, and service stand the test of time. People will forget your titles, but remember how you treated them. They will forget the details of your accomplishments, but remember how you made them feel. They will forget the authority you held, but remember the authenticity you lived. Legacy is written in the human heart, and the ink it uses is kindness, wisdom, and love. When you embody values that transcend the moment, those values become seeds planted in the lives of others, seeds that continue to grow and bear fruit long after you are gone. Legacy also requires vision. A leader without vision can achieve success in the present, but that success rarely lasts. A leader with vision, however, inspires movements, builds institutions, and sparks ideas that continue to flourish in their absence. Think of leaders like Nelson Mandela, whose vision of reconciliation and equality continues to inspire the world, or Rosa Parks, whose single act of courage fueled a movement for justice, or Steve Jobs, whose vision of innovation transformed entire industries. These individuals created legacies not because they sought to be remembered, but because they lived in service of a vision bigger than themselves. When you align your life with a vision that transcends your personal gain, you create a legacy that cannot be confined to your lifetime. Another essential aspect of legacy is mentorship. The knowledge, wisdom, and experiences you have gained are not meant to be hoarded, but to be shared. Every time you invest in the growth of another person, every time you teach, guide, encourage, or support someone, you are planting a piece of your legacy in their life. They, in turn, carry that forward and pass it on to others, creating a chain of influence that extends far beyond what you could achieve alone. Great leaders multiply themselves not through authority, but through mentorship, because they understand that the true measure of leadership is not how many people follow them, but how many leaders they empower. If you want to create a legacy that outlives you, commit to pouring into others, to passing on not just skills, but also values, not just knowledge, but also wisdom, not just strategies, but also belief in their potential. Creating a legacy also means being willing to make sacrifices. Every enduring legacy has been built on choices that required giving up comfort, convenience, or personal gain for the sake of a larger purpose. It may mean standing up for truth when it is unpopular, working tirelessly when others are content with mediocrity, or choosing integrity even when dishonesty seems easier. These sacrifices may not always be recognized in the moment, but they form the foundation of a life that others will look back on with respect. Sacrifice is what gives legacy its depth, because it proves that the values you live were not just words, but commitments you were willing to pay a price for. And when others see that you were willing to give of yourself for something greater, they are inspired to carry that same spirit forward. Resilience also plays a role in legacy, because lasting impact is not created in a moment of success, but in a lifetime of perseverance. Your legacy is shaped by how you respond to setbacks, by whether you continue moving forward when the path is difficult, by whether you hold on to your values when tested. People are often inspired not just by your victories, but by your struggles, by the fact that you kept going when others would have given up. Your story of endurance becomes part of your legacy, a reminder to future generations that strength is not the absence of difficulty, but the persistence to rise through it. Every time you overcome adversity with courage and faith, you add a chapter to your legacy that others will draw strength from when they face their own trials. Creating a legacy also requires presence. It is not just about the big achievements, but about the everyday moments when you choose to be fully there, to listen, to encourage, to show kindness. Legacies are often built in small acts that seem ordinary at the time, but leave extraordinary imprints. The word of encouragement you speak today may echo in someone's life for decades. The kindness you extend today may inspire someone to extend kindness to countless others. The way you handle a single challenge may become a story that guides others long after you are gone. Presence is the soil in which legacy grows, because it transforms fleeting moments into lasting memories. By showing up with intention in the everyday, you create a life that continues to live on in the hearts of others. One of the profound truths about legacy is that you may never fully see the impact you create. You may plant seeds that will not bloom until long after you are gone. You may inspire people who will never tell you directly how you changed their life. You may contribute to causes whose full fruit will ripen in future generations. Legacy requires faith, the willingness to act with the belief that what you do matters, even if you do not witness its ultimate results. This is why legacy is not about recognition, but about contribution. It is about living in such a way that your influence continues whether or not your name is remembered. And when you live with that mindset, you find peace because you know your life is part of something bigger, something timeless. At the heart of legacy is love. All the achievements, all the strategies, all the innovations in the world fade if they are not rooted in love. Love is what makes people remember you with warmth. Love is what transforms your actions into blessings that endure. Love is what turns leadership into service, service into impact, and impact into legacy. If you want to create a legacy that outlives your presence, lead with love. Love in the way you listen, in the way you support, in the way you uplift, in the way you sacrifice, in the way you dream. Love has a power that transcends time, and a life lived in love will never truly end, because its echoes will continue in the lives of those touched by it.